NLP can help create lasting change through something called rapport building, through communication. So what we've learned in those 4 days was something called rapport. So essentially think about your relationship with people that are, let's say, not your best friend, but new people, like people that you're trying to network with, right? And we all know that in order for you to get ahead in life, you do need to build relationships, right? That is one of the top things that people forget, is that you can never do anything alone. So many people start their own business and think that, okay, it's all about me in order for me to get the results that I want. You're forgetting that it's so much easier to also rely on your support system, to rely on people helping you get to where you want to go. Put up your mask, let down your guard, and let's talk about the real. This is the Bring Your Own Mask podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the BYOM podcast. My name is Kristen Noelle, and guess what? This episode is the last episode of season 1 of the podcast, and it is a bit sad, and I'm also excited at the very same time, because I did promise you guys 22 episodes, and we are at the 22nd episode today. So in today's podcast episode, it's just going to be me, and I'm actually going to be sharing my experience after coming back from an entire 4 days of NLP training. I got certified with my husband 2 weeks ago. We were in Austin, Texas with an NLP training, and I really want to talk about how NLP creates lasting change. Now, the reason why I say lasting change is because of the fact that for me, for the longest time, it has been always hard for me to stay motivated, meaning that I am a very inspirational, motivated person. I have always been really into personal development for a really long time. Ever since I was in high school, I have been obsessed, like a personal development junkie, right? But one of the things that I've noticed about myself is that there was a story or a limiting belief that I could not stay consistent, and that I would be motivated only for a short amount of time, and that my success would not be long lasting. So the reason why I decided to get certified in NLP is because I really wanted to have long lasting change. And so in today's episode, I wanted to share with you what I've learned these last 4 days, what it has really taught me, what we have actually gone through. And we're going to go through 3 different topics, right? We're going to go into how you can ditch limiting beliefs with NLP, how to improve your relationships with NLP, and then finally, how to really empower your mind and create long-lasting habits with NLP. Now, I just want to give you a disclaimer. I am relatively new to NLP. I just went through this program. However, I really want to talk about what I learned and how I already feel like I've seen a huge change already, right? So what I'll probably do is that within a year, I will update you on the results that I've had in my business using NLP for an entire year. And then we can kind of see before and after, and whether it's for you. My experience is that so far it's been great. I'm always working on myself. I'm always trying to do programs that I know will help me not only in my business, but in my personal life in terms of self-mastery. So without further ado, let's jump into why NLP creates lasting change. Now, before we do that, let's put on our mask. I have a very special mask today. Actually, it's from Love and Pebble. It's called Beauty Pops, and it's actually a cryofacial mask kit. So it's actually really cold, and you create this powder form and you put it in the freezer, you pop it out, and it's just really cold, and you're supposed to put it all over your face. I originally saw them on Shark Tank, and I was so intrigued, and I always like to support other entrepreneurs. And so I thought I'd purchase it and try it out. And I did this for the first time with my mom, and it was amazing. We really had a great time, quite an experience. So I really do recommend it. And I'll leave the links to this mask in the show notes below. You pour 1 scoop of powder into the silicone mold and fill water to the line. Okay.
What is it made of?
It's made of papaya, banana. It's like a face mask. Okay.
So are you making 2 masks?
Yeah, one for me, one for you.
Okay.
And then it says, and then fill water to the line. Your line. Oh, okay. Okay. And then it says, I don't get it. Oh, here. Okay. So you stir. And then it says,
Did you put on our face?
no. You put it in the freezer.
Oh.
So you put it back. Place the silicone one back into the tray. Oh, so you can take this out. So you make sure you put it back in the tray like this.
Okay.
And then what you do is, I think you do. Cover with the stick. I think you go like this. And like this. Okay, so let's go on to our first topic, which is how do you ditch limiting beliefs with NLP? Right. Okay. So first of all, I think it's really important to tell you guys what NLP actually is, right? So for those of you that are curious as to what NLP even is, it stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that I'm someone that likes to take really complicated things and make it simple. So the simple term of what NLP is the study of successful people and how they get results. Again, I'm not a scientific person. I'm not going to go into like each thing like neural, what does that mean? It's kind of self-explanatory. I just love analogies. I love simple explanations. So the simple explanation of NLP is like the study of successful people and how they get results, right? If you want to be a successful person, most likely you want to study how successful people do it, right? And you want to model after them. Now, modeling is not copying what they're doing exactly, but it's kind of understanding the framework of what they're doing, studying it, seeing what you can do to model after them, and repeating those action steps. Now, to answer the question of, how do you ditch limiting beliefs with NLP? What I've learned in these 4 days with my husband is this idea of reframing. So I talk a lot about this in my book, Stop Chasing, Start Attracting on Limiting Beliefs. I'm a strong believer that 90%, even 80 to 90% of the time, whenever we are not doing something, we're not taking action, it has to do with our belief system, our thoughts that is stopping us from actually taking the steps to do the thing, right? How-tos are not enough. Think about this. There are so many articles out there that says how to, create a YouTube channel or how to make 6 figures, right? Like there are a lot of how-tos out there. And in fact, there's articles that literally explain every single step to do something, right? You can just Google it. So why is it that some people are able to get the results that they want and then some people, they don't? Right. And the simple answer is their belief system. It's their thoughts that are keeping them from achieving the goals that they want. Right. Self-doubt, self-sabotage, right? Thoughts of like, okay, can I really do it? Right. Or it could be emotional baggage. Like for me, for the longest time, I had this limiting belief of, well, none of my family members are business owners, right? Like, they're all about education and getting a 9-to-5 job. Like I don't have anyone to look up to. And that was a limiting belief that I had for a very long time as to why I couldn't be an entrepreneur, right? So when it comes to limiting beliefs, it's a really real thing that is stopping people from actually getting the results that they want or the income that they want. So how NLP actually helps you ditch those limiting beliefs is through something called reframing. So we learned something about reframing, and reframing is basically looking at a specific incident or thought or belief and reframing how that might look in our head, right? So think about a story that you have created for a specific instance. I'll give you an example of sales, for example, right? So in the past, oh man, the one thing about this is that it actually drips all over the place. So you have to be careful. Okay. So I used to have this limiting belief where, let's say I promote a product of mine, right, or a service of mine, and then I don't hear from that person. Nobody buys from me, for example, right? Then I start to have this limiting belief of like, oh my gosh, like my service is not good enough, right? That most of the time when you're not getting sales, that's like the first limiting belief that you have, right? It's like, oh my gosh, no one likes my stuff, no one likes my service, I'm not good enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I feel like this is going into my mouth. Okay, so that is a limiting belief, right? Now, if we were to reframe that belief, it would be, well, what if it's not that your service isn't good enough? What if you just haven't followed up with enough people, right? Or maybe it's your marketing message, right? So again, it's easier said than done, but it's really important that we practice reframing situations. And this can be anything, right? It's not just about sales, it's just every single incident, even with your personal life. Let's just say that you have an argument with somebody, right? Most people will be like, oh my gosh, this person yelled at me, like creating some kind of story, right? When it's not even factual. I would say that most 80 to 90% of the time, we develop these thoughts in our head that we think is absolutely true, right? And there's no truth to it. It's really just all in our heads. Okay. And we like to believe that it's true. And therefore, we create drama in our lives just because of some kind of belief that we've had. Okay. So I really encourage you. The first thing is all about reframing how we see things. So I triple dare you or challenge you this week to really reframe all of the beliefs that you have, every thought that comes into your mind, especially when it's negative, right? So obviously, if it's negative, then you definitely want to do this, but try practicing reframing with everything. Instead of believing the first thought or belief that you have, try reframing every single thing. And you can see that you have options or you have choices on how you view a certain situation. It's not just the first thought that pops in your head or the first belief that you have. Okay. We have a choice in how we can reframe things. Okay. So, like I said, how we can ditch limiting beliefs is through reframing. And that is a tool that NLP teaches. Now, again, it's so funny. I was joking with my dad because I was telling my dad that I was doing an NLP training. And he was like, well, I know NLP. Like I just Googled it. I know what it is. Granted, right? Like it takes practice. It's called self-mastery for a reason. And you cannot say that you know something just because you read it, right? You have to embody it. So again, before you go and say like, okay, well, now I know what NLP is because Kristen just explained it to me, try practicing it for a year and then really ask yourself, okay, have I embodied what I just learned, right? Rather than just reading it for the first time or absorbing it and then like forgetting about it, right? Okay, the second thing when it comes to how NLP creates change is actually improve relationships and communication. So part of the reason why I also wanted to do this NLP training is because I wanted to further build my communication skills. Now, I was a communications major when I went to college, right? But what I find very interesting in life is that my dad used to always tell me that, okay, Kristen, you have to get a real major or like communication is nothing. But he told me this during my wedding. He said this speech that he was so shocked how when I went to school for communication, how it has helped me with the success that I have today. Now, I tell you this because most of the time when something is not technical, we don't see it as an actual skill. But communications and building rapport with people can literally help you get ahead in life. Most of the time, promotions are given to people not because they have a qualification, but really because of the way they are able to build rapport with their boss or their manager, right? So for me, for example, people that work for me, I've noticed that yes, like your talents matter, your skill sets matter. It's really how you are able to talk to me and how you're able to communicate with me that really sets the difference as to why I would promote one person over another. So, with that being said, NLP can help create lasting change through something called rapport building through communication. So what we've learned in those 4 days was something called rapport. So essentially think about your relationship with people that are, let's say, not your best friend, but new people, like people that you're trying to network with, right? And we all know that in order for you to get ahead in life, you do need to build relationships, right? That is one of the top things that people forget, is that you can never do anything alone. As much as an entrepreneur, so many people start their own business and think that, okay, it's all about me in order for me to get the results that I want. You're forgetting that it's so much easier to also rely on your support system, to rely on people helping you get to where you want to go, right? So how can you build rapport with someone else, right? So one of the things that we learned was actually called mirroring, or essentially when you're sitting across someone, kind of like seeing what they're doing and modeling after their gestures or how they're placing their hands and whatnot. And again, I'm really speeding through this. There's so many tools to NLP that I cannot just say in one podcast. I'm really just kind of breaking it down for you just for this podcast episode, right? So what I'd like for you to try this week as an exercise. Okay, so I'm so sorry, but because it's dripping, it's like hard for me to actually really think about what I'm saying. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start taking off my mask so I can actually focus and concentrate. Okay. So when it comes to rapport building, right, a good way to enhance your communication skills is to actually try to put yourself in another person's shoes. So what I've noticed is that rapport is not just about, let's say, copying or modeling after the person's gestures and how they talk or whatnot, but it's also about understanding the other person's point of view and what their intentions are. So what we've learned this last 4 days is that most of the time when people are communicating with each other, they're really just trying to make their own point across, right? When you're debating with someone, when you're trying to get your point across, you're only one-sided. You're only positioning yourself on one side. Now, in order for you to win an argument, or in order for you to really persuade someone to purchase your product or to purchase your service, for instance, you have to put yourself in the other person's situation. You have to understand their debate or understand their point of view in order for you to debate them, right? So a lot of salespeople, a lot of business owners learn NLP because they want to get better at sales. They want to be able to improve their business. And part of it is called empathy, right? So let's say that you're talking to someone, right? The end result is for them to agree to what you have to say, right? Or for you to show them, hey, like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. You're trying to convince them of your point of view, right? But in order for you to convince that person your point of view, you have to understand their point of view so that you're able to talk to them in a way for them to understand, okay, this person gets me. This person understands where I'm coming from. And that's how you can actually make a change, right? So this is such a great tool for even parents or people that have, small children, because of the fact that I just realized that everyone has a different personality, right? So the way that my parents raised me and my brother should have been different because we have two different personalities. So the way they would convince me as a child would be different than the way they would convince my brother, right? So for those of you that have kids, it's really important that you understand the personality of your child, or understand what makes them motivated, what makes them sad or whatnot, and be able to talk to them in a way that gets the results that you want, right? So that is the nutshell of how NLP can improve your relationships, not only your intimate relationships with your partner, but also your working relationships. Let's say you have employees, you can talk to them in a way that gets them to move, gets them motivated, right? And then finally, your relationships in terms of your customers, right? Actually, I had an incident with one of our Airbnb guests. So for those of you that don't know this already, my husband and I own a Airbnb in Sedona, vacation rental in Sedona. And I'll be honest, we started off really hot. We were doing very well, but there's also glitches and there's problems that we've had to overcome throughout our short time on Airbnb. And one of them was, guests complaining, right? So when a guest complains, it's because we have not fulfilled a need of theirs, right? So in order to solve the issue, it's so important for me to put myself in the guest position, for me to understand how to talk to them in a way that would get them to understand my point of view. So that's exactly what I did. And NLP has helped me do that. Literally, we literally had an incident that happened recently where a guest complained about the alarm system that went off. To make a long story short, I put myself in their situation. And for me to share with them like, hey, I understand where you're coming from, and be able to almost kind of like read what it is that they want back from me is actually how we were able to maintain our 5-star review and for all of our guests to be happy, essentially. Okay. So there you have it. That is how NLP helps improve relationships. So the last thing when it comes to how NLP can create lasting change is empowering your mind. Okay. And how you can actually change your state whenever you want. And that is, I probably think is the coolest thing about NLP, something called anchoring, right? So remember how I mentioned earlier that one of the things that really motivated me or got me to do an NLP training is the fact that I used to have this limiting belief that I cannot be motivated for a long time, or like something like that would not be long lasting per se, right? So when it comes to NLP and how it empowers your mind, there is something called anchoring that really is super helpful in changing your state to your desired state whenever you want. I actually did that right before I hopped onto this podcast episode, because I'll be honest with you, I was not feeling it. Today was a rather difficult day because of the fact that, we actually came back from California late yesterday, like around midnight. And to be honest with you, today has been a really hard day, right? I was playing catch up. There were so many things that I really had to catch up on when it comes to work, because we missed 2 weeks of being here at home. And when you're traveling, as much as I can work while I'm traveling, I really don't want to, because I really want to spend quality time with the people that I'm with. And I was with my family for Lunar New Year. So when I came back, I'll be honest with you, I'm still very, very, very tired. But what I've done is I've learned anchoring in order for me to be on this podcast right now and as excited as I am and talking about what I'm talking about. And basically what anchoring is being able to change your state at the moment to another desired state so that you can be motivated anytime you want. And normally it's anchoring it into a specific part of your body. So for mine, it's like this first knuckle. And so when I press on this knuckle, I'm able to immediately become motivated, excited about what I'm doing. And then I can do the things I need to do, right? Now, there is a process to anchoring. So for those of you who want to learn how to anchor, I really suggest that you get certified in NLP, or maybe even find like a YouTube video on it, because I'm not going to teach you this right now. It's just quite long and I don't want to do that. But I want to talk about why anchoring is so powerful, because when you think about your states, right? So think about when you wake up and you're in a specific mood, right? That's a specific state that you're in. Now, I will argue and say that your state can be changed anytime. And how I know this is that think about when you're arguing with your spouse or arguing with a partner, arguing with anybody, right? You're in a specific state, you're angry, you're yelling. Let's say you're yelling, right? Now, let's say that the phone rings or the doorbell rings. Why is it that some people, actually not some people, most of the people can drop what it is that they're arguing about and open the door or pick up the phone, and their voice changes almost immediately and they're calm almost immediately? It's the state change, right? So when people tell you like, I'm angry and like, I'm just in this state and I can't change my state at all, really you can. It's a choice that you make, right? The only thing is that you're choosing not to do that. You're choosing to stay angry. Okay. So the hardest part when it comes to changing your state is the aspect of letting go. So most of the time when people tell you that they're angry at you, they're angry because they're not able to let go of their ego, or they're not able to let go of how they feel, right? It's almost as if holding on to that feeling is some kind of comfort level for them. The moment they're able to let go, they're able to change states. So that's also why anchoring is so important, because when you're anchoring, you can touch a part of your body and you're immediately transported into the state, and your subconscious remembers the state that you have programmed for yourself. A lot of NLP is unlearning things in the past, especially as a child that you've been programmed over the years, and relearning new programs. One of the things that I feel like is so fascinating when it comes to NLP is this reminder that we are not conscious 99% of the time, we are operating with our unconscious beliefs, programming, whatnot. And so whenever you feel like, why am I not motivated? It has nothing to do with your conscious willpower, right? Sure, you can go to the gym and that's willpower for like 5 minutes, but whether or not you stay at the gym and continue working out, that is not willpower. That is your unconscious mind helping you. So that's also why when you're driving, you're not driving consciously. It's an unconscious thing that you have learned to do. And because you're so good at it and you've done it so many times, you can literally drive and you think that you're conscious. Yeah, you're awake. You're physically looking at the street. But sometimes have you ever asked yourself, like, how did I get from one point to another point? Like, I don't even remember everything that happened, right? It's because your unconscious has been helping you throughout this whole time in making decisions. If you want to test this, what you want to do is that throughout this week, you can ask yourself your decision making, right? Look at all the decisions that you have made this week. Okay. So let's say today's Monday and Friday, you can ask yourself, okay, well, the decisions that I make, did it come from me consciously, or was this an unconscious decision that I've made over and over and over and over again in the past? And I'm just making it again this time, right? So there you have it. Okay. These are the 3 things that I have learned when it came to NLP. I mean, there is a lot more, I'll be honest with you, but for the sake of this podcast, I really want to really kind of just skim the surface as to what NLP can do for you. I had so many of you ask me via Instagram, like, what is NLP? How does it help you? And I wanted to create this podcast episode to kind of explain to you why I decided to take an NLP course and get certified. And then secondly, how it could possibly help you. Because here's the thing, right? As much as I have taken so many courses on how-tos, the most transformative thing that I can do for myself is to work on my belief system, to work on my unconscious programming. Because once I'm able to unprogram or like unlearn certain things, everything else is so much easier. It's almost as if it's effortless. And sometimes when you hear people say like, okay, like I manifested that and it was effortless, what they're basically saying is that they were able to unlearn their belief systems so much so that now it has become effortless to do, right? I'll give you this last example because I think it's so important for you to really grasp this idea, right? So for example, it's really easy for me to go to the gym and work out and, do my ritual every single day. It doesn't require any effort. It doesn't require any willpower at all. And I'm saying this because it's 100% true. And the reason is because as a child, I saw my parents work out every day. So, my dad was an athlete. He was a basketball player. And my mom, we used to work out all the time. I grew up in a very healthy household. I didn't even have soda until I was in high school. I didn't even know what that was, right? And so think about like for so many years where you see what health is, the idea of what health is, right? So because I saw my parents doing that all the time, it has been programmed in me as a child that working out is effortless, right? It's a necessity. It's part of who I am, which is why as an adult, when I work out, I almost feel like it's just who I am. It's part of who I am. And I don't need to actually motivate for myself to go to the gym. In fact, if I don't go to the gym for like a day or two, I actually feel like I'm not myself, right? So that's an example of programming as a child, right? Nonetheless, this is a healthy programming, right? Because you want to be healthy and fit and exercise. Now, let's take another example and see how it can be a negative, right? And that is money, for instance. So my programming when it came to money as a child was that I had to save money. Money was scarce. Money did not grow on trees, right? So that was the programming that I had as a child. Now that I'm at this age, right? For many, many years, I've struggled with learning how to make money, keep money, circulating money, etc. Right? And it was because of the fact that as a child, I had this belief, seeing my parents, that money did not grow on trees, right? And money was hard to make, right? And because I saw that, right, that has been programmed in me like a few years ago or even 5 years ago, that money is hard. So that's also why it takes longer for me to unprogram these beliefs for me to be where I am today. Does that make sense? So that's why for you, those of you that are listening, when you see people able to make money, right, it's because their beliefs on money has changed. Okay, so I really want you to process what I said on this episode and really think about it, right? And that's also why so many entrepreneurs can't make the same amount of money as they did when they were a 9 to 5 employee, for instance, right? There's this belief like, okay, 9 to 5 is safe. I can make safe money here and I can do that. Even when I switched to becoming an entrepreneur, right? That belief had to change as well, because I was so used to making an amount of money as an employee. But now that I'm on my own, there's this a new belief, right? Like I've never done this before. None of my family members had their own business, etc. Right? So there you have it. That is how powerful NLP can be when you're able to see the results that you can do with it. Okay. So with that being said, it is the last episode of season 1. And I hope this was helpful. I would love for you to send me a message on Instagram and let me know what you have gotten out of this episode. I know that I didn't go too deep into NLP, but I wanted to give you some kind of knowledge on it. If you are interested in learning more about the program that I used, you can send me a message as well. I really like them because it was only 4 days and then we have to take our tests to become certified. But I really, really do think that everyone should at least try out NLP because it will help you so much when it comes to your unconscious programming. And that's the thing. So many people spend money on things that in the long run does not matter, right? Like it's easy to spend money on things that supposedly will make you fast money. I used to always spend money on things that, let's say, is strategy, right? Because it's a how to. But if you don't work on that unconscious programming, all the how to's will not work, right? Like no matter what, you can literally do the same thing as another person. But if your beliefs are different, you're not going to get the same results. So without further ado, I am going to say bye to you until next season 2. I don't know when that's going to be released, but I almost kind of don't even want to say bye to you all. I hope this episode was helpful. Let me know in the comments or send me a message on Instagram on your thoughts on this episode. And again, if you want to help your girl out, make sure you give us a review, a good one, on Spotify or Apple iTunes. And if you haven't already, make sure you follow me on Instagram.